Seems that there's a silver lining to the Millersville story. I'll keep you apprised. I at least have to acknowledge that it's Friday and not almost Friday. That helps me a little bit, even though I had to get up before it was Friday. And the idea that I am more powerful than I realize, or not, depending on how I realize it. So when I challenge myself, when I said to you last time that I like challenges, I also like being so powerful that nothing challenges me. And I'm wondering if it's healthy to toggle back and forth, or if I should just be so powerful all the time that nothing really challenges me. And once you realize that's an option, once you realize and make it real, I wonder if it spoils the game somewhat. It's only 1:35 a.m. I'm on my way to Harrisburg to deliver a load of ice cream. I saw the moon hanging up there. What do you think of that? I know it doesn't look as impressive in the camera. Sometimes I think I made this whole place up because I was bored. The whole universe. And then I stuck a version of myself that can't remember. And then I just do it over and over because I don't know what else to do. I just live it over and over. Different lifetimes, different people and animals, different situations. Earlier I alluded to good news possibly with Millersville. If I made the whole thing up though, I don't know why I would have invented Millersville. I guess just to make it interesting. I like books and stories and movies that don't have heinous villains. I love the James Herriot books. I remember All Things Bright and Beautiful, or All Creatures Great and Small. I don't know which one started. He was a country veterinarian in the UK, and he had challenges. He had ups and downs, hilarious encounters and adventures. But in the end, there were no Disney-type villains. There were no heinous people. There were no megalomaniacal assholes for him to combat. Ups and downs, but they were gentle. I also remember the Louisa May Alcott books. Little Women, Little Men, Jack and Jill, lots of others. I think I've read every book that she's written. Another wonderful movie that kind of doesn't seem to have villains, and if it did, it would be too terrifying for words, is Pixar's Inside Out. there's a crisis. A girl has to uproot and move from Minnesota to San Francisco, and that's a crisis. And in her control panel, in her control room, she has joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear. And they take turns running things. And she has these islands, Hockey Island, Goofball Island. She has different things that are important to her that keep her afloat, keep her who she is. They're her identity. Together, collectively, all the islands are her identity. I've had various islands in my lifetimes. The problem with mine has been that they're all about doing, about being competent. You ask most men what they do, it's equivalent to who they are. I'm a welder. I'm a truck driver. I'm an engineer. I'm a sanitation worker. I'm a recruiter. I'm an astronaut. I'm a physicist. I'm a college professor. And that's our identity, as opposed to our activity. Human doings versus human beings. And I think that's a problem. If I made this whole system up just to amuse myself, I can see problems inherent. I can see how it wouldn't be sustainable. Eventually, even after millions of years, you'd come to a place where you said, what does this all mean? Is there anything inherently meaningful about it? For me, the most meaningful part has been my connections to other people and to other animals. When I have conversations, it feels like it means something. Different conversations are shallow or deep, superficial or meaningful. But it still feels like those connections, and I know I didn't make up all the people. I know I didn't invent them all or create them in my big video game. I believe that they have their own individual substance, that they belong to themselves and not to me. I don't know how healthy it would be to make up creatures and then have relationships with them, like God supposedly has done. I think it would create, inherently, baked in, an unhealthy situation. If one person has too much authority over another, it has to be a codependent relationship. It has to be, by definition, unhealthy. Aaron Dowdy says, there is no inherent meaning. The only meaning is what we give it. And that makes a lot of sense. And so that would explain why Tolkien and Disney and J.K. Rowling and other authors have created villains, hateful, heinous villains. We have to make sure we're still alive. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. Instead of gentle rolling hills and challenges that we can figure out eventually, we have other entities, other souls that wish us harm. And I guess that makes it more interesting, more engaging. That's what it is. If I invented this life, if I figured it out ahead of time, and this is why I kind of started to think I did, there could be no more interesting villains than the ones I've created. No more diabolical, nefarious, megalomaniacal, narcissistic, gaslighting villains than the ones I've created for my story. It's funny sometimes. Like, you can't believe it. It's too good. It could never happen that way by chance. Maybe in some lifetimes, in this huge video game I've invented, I just sit around on a farm, or I have a wife and kids, and I grow old with them, and then they have the same, and it doesn't feel like watching paint dry. It doesn't feel tedious or claustrophobic. It's just the way it should be. And we serve a God that created us happily. We don't question that God's authority. We don't say, well, why did you make us like this? Why did you put us in situations like this? It got to the point with me where I had to say, well, no, that makes no sense. The only thing that I can make sense of is if I made it to keep myself from being bored. Because I get bored really easily. And I can't be in a relationship to another entity of servitude. I can't be in that kind of a codependent situation without eventually coming apart at the seams. It just doesn't work. Someone who created me, that I have to obey, who can be disappointed in me or displeased with me if I don't obey well enough, or if I don't meet that entity's expectations. Fuck that shit. Not gonna do that. And I wouldn't do that. But I would put a version of myself that can't remember and doesn't know that I made the game into a situation like that, just to pass the time. And through that, I would probably, as an eternal being, I would probably level up. I would keep growing and changing, because static is going to kill us if we don't change, if we don't level up, if we don't become something new over time, whatever time is. We have to evolve. We have to grow. If we don't change, I think it's like anything else that we can observe. it just decays, it just rots away, it just stops existing. Like a stream where the water shuts off, or a boulder rolls in front of the water and then there's no water. It's not a stream if the water stops flowing. And it's always new water, it's always different water. And we need to be like that. And we have to be eternally inventive, eternally creative. If we stop inventing ourselves, I think we stop. I don't see how we can keep going. This universe, whatever it is elaborate. It's not infinitely elaborate. If you look at the trees, they're in a pattern, like in a video game. You've got a maple tree, and then you've got another maple tree. You've got lots of kinds of maple trees, but still, they get plopped around. I remember playing the game Second Life, and I remember thinking that, oh wow, somebody just plopped all these trees around here, and waterfalls, and avatars, and it's all a formula. You just say, I want a tree there, or a building there. And you can make buildings. I remember that game. It was pretty interesting. Because it showed me that Second Life is probably not Second Life. It's probably fifth or sixth life, or who knows how many. Nested. One life invented within another, within another. How complex then must the base reality be? And it makes me wonder, is it organic? What is substance? And you know, it isn't really solid. It's just spinning molecules, spinning atoms. There's a lot of space within it, but it seems solid to us. And there could be universes. They're like Horton Hears a Who. There could be like civilizations under our fingernails. And maybe we're a civilization under someone else's fingernail. And how would we ever know? And if we did know, we might not want to tell ourselves because that would spoil it. And that's kind of where I am today. I'm trying to think about if knowing. The comfort is I can't prove any of this. That's a comfort to you probably if you're still with me after all that. Knowing, well, yeah, I can understand, I can see it, but there's no way to know for sure. And that's the saving grace. Because that would probably end it. That would probably spoil it. We'd say, well, if that's what it means, it's just a way to amuse ourselves, then I'm not interested in continuing. I don't consent. I want to check out. I don't agree that that's worth all of my investment, whatever it is I'm investing. Just caring about it, giving a fuck about it. If meaning is manufactured, if there is none other than what we invent, then we've all been misled, or I don't know, maybe we've agreed to be, but it feels like a trick, like we've been tricked. And I'm not sure it's a comfort if I've tricked myself. I gotta speak to Mark Dorwart here. I arrived here at SuperValue Harrisburg at 2:30 in the morning, and it's now almost 8 a.m. and I'm still sitting here. And they said we were swamped. A load of ice cream and I backed up to the dock door with my doors open, and the load didn't get above 0 degrees, so there's no issue. But it's interesting. That's a lot of money in a big load of ice cream. It's interesting that they treat the ice cream that poorly, but it's also interesting that they treat the workers, the truckers, and probably their own workers, if they're having issues like that. The system is down. It's faulty and flawed. But if I invented the whole thing, I probably made it that way just so I'd have something to complain about, or something to contend with. Because if I don't have anything to contend with, it isn't interesting enough. And it isn't enough, I guess, just to have a bad situation. I have to have personalities to contend with. I walked in there and I said to the people behind the counter, I said, why would anyone come here if you make them wait so many hours? That's a lot of money. That's reefer fuel. That's time. Time is expensive. It just theft. It's theft. And this place is notorious for treating people like shit. Oh, it's just our policy. It's just our system. But there are psychopaths back there somewhere. And that must be what I need. I needed to invent psychopaths that would give me big challenges. Sometimes, though, it stretches thin. I think I get stretched thin. Maybe it seems too familiar. The problem with this message is that it's like a cheat code. If there's any credibility to it, if it feels like it makes sense, that could be a bad thing, because then you would say, well, life doesn't mean what it seems to mean, and probably it doesn't mean anything, and therefore why should I bother with it? And it's like spoiling a movie, or like you aren't supposed to know all that. Some people don't want to play a game after a while without the cheat codes. Like, it's just too much. They don't have the patience to unravel it without. And maybe that's what this can be. It's like, if you don't have the patience to unravel it where it all is what it seems to be, and that's definitely where I am, then I want some help. I want somebody to say, well, no, it doesn't really mean what it seems to be. In fact, it doesn't really mean anything unless you want it to. And then maybe I can keep going a few more lifetimes. Or maybe I can reinvent this universe, or probably have. And there are probably others. Maybe we inhabit them simultaneously. Who knows? And if this kind of conversation is just way too much, you don't want to think about it that way, it might be that your soul doesn't want to spoil it, that you don't want to know that kind of stuff. Or it's just, oh, this is bad shit, this is crazy, this is woo-woo, this is not worth my time, this is just stupid. And I understand, I've felt that way. But there are probably moments for all of us where we need something else. We need it to make more sense than it seems to. I really miss interacting with 19-year-olds. I miss sitting with them in my office and pondering things. I miss the interaction in class too, because as I got older, there was less and less that I wouldn't discuss in my classroom. Because in a university where the universe is what we're studying, anything is fair game, or should be. especially if it challenges the status quo. And our universities have become the last, they should be the first in challenging the status quo, but they've become the least likely place for that to happen. George Carlin had it right. Education will always suck. Education sucks and it will never change, or however he said it. And the reason is they're trying to produce obedient workers. They're not trying to produce thinkers. They don't want an informed population capable of critical thinking. And when you have teachers trying to lead people outside of the box into questioning things, into figuring out how things work, then you get in trouble. Then you get investigated and terminated. Besides that, as you get older, you get more expensive, and the bean counters can't have that. Ageism. That's basically what ageism is. It's like, not that you can't do the job as you get older, but that you cost too much. So we've got to trip you up somehow and bully you into quitting. I'm interested in the kind of weather I've been making lately. Just look at the day. It just fits. When Mark called me, he was telling me what to do when they reject a load, when it's their own fault. And it happens all the time. So I was just getting up to speed. The frustrating part is how often it happens here and other places. Food is kind of a big deal in this video game. And if every place is like this, it just, after a while, if there's some sort of revolution, if the truckers say, hey, we're not putting up with this anymore, we're not, whether you're paying us by the hour or not, we're not going to sit here as though our lives mean nothing. I asked Mark, because if you're an over-the-road driver and you have a sleeper cab like I do, and your day goes haywire, then you're expected, even on a Friday, even when you have plans for Saturday and Sunday, like you're going to go out of town to see your grandkids or your great nephew in New York City, even if you have plans, then you still might end up stuck in New Jersey overnight because you ran out of hours. I was supposed to go to New Jersey after this, and that trip from the yard back to the yard takes me about 9 hours, and I'm not as fast as anybody. And I only have 6.5 hours left on my shift. And there's no flexibility there. So the only thing I can do, if I do what they scheduled me to do, is go to New Jersey and unload, and then find a Love's or a Rutter's. I like Rutter's. Whatever truck stop you like. You probably don't go to truck stops, but I'd have to lay over then for 10 hours and then come back, and then all my plans go out the window. I was just briefly saying to Mark, we might want to consider the culture of our company, of the way it works. Can we, unless we're on vacation, can we ever say that the time we have is our time? And I know this is a big deal with all of us workers, which is most of us. We have jobs that are demanding and they involve our thinking even when we're not being paid, or technically being paid. Even salaried workers shouldn't feel like they're being paid 24/7 to be thinking about the company 24/7. There should be separate time that's our time. And at Turkey Hill, they want us to tell them if we do have big plans, but it's like, it's my time, whether I have big plans or not. They want, I mean, that's the best they can do. They're pushed by circumstances. They're pushed by shippers. They're pushed by the way this whole operation works. And if I invented the whole thing, it's all my fault, I know. So they're getting pushed, and managers, they don't feel like they belong to themselves. I'm sure they're always telling their significant others why they can't do what they thought they were going to be able to do. And then they're getting pushed, gets other people pushed, like warehouse workers and truck drivers. But it's weird that you'd have to say every week, well, I have plans this weekend, so try not to get me somewhere far away where I might not make it back on Friday night. And as I was told, that is the expectation, that if you need to be on a Friday, you need to be overnight. If that's what happens, then that's the expectation, that you'll be able to do that. Just makes an interesting psychology. Does my life belong to me? And people who are realists, they'll just say, hell no, of course it doesn't. Not 1 minute. There's no agency. There's no freedom. There's a famous book, wherever you go, there you are. But in moments where life happens and your plans don't turn out the way you want them to, you can't just decide where you want to go. You go where you're told, and you do what you're told, and you sit in the dock door. They have unloaded me. I don't know if the product is sitting on the dock melting or not, but I've been waiting for my paperwork for a long time. Hours and hours. It's 8:36. No, it's 8:10. I've been I think I need a dragon. It's kind of a soggy day for a dragon, but I need a dragon to swoop down out of the sky and challenge me. And I need to save my truck from the dragon. Unless a fair damsel shows up, then I'll save her. If you made it to this point in the video, you probably need help too. And let me know, and we'll commiserate.